Okay, so the first two are stories my grandma. Well, I think I'm just gonna do the two my grandma used to tell me. She grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and I would ask her like, why does she have so many scary stories that she would remember, and yet she hated horror movies and she didn't like playing with cards because she said that she would dream about the cards coming to get her. So it made me laugh that she would have all these scary stories. And she said it was just stories that the locals would tell in the hollow, and that's what she knew about. They say the Appalachians are older than the bones of the earth. The trees twist like arthritic fingers. The wind carries voices that don't belong to the living, and deep in the forest hollows something ancient watches. My name is Lou. I was raised in a dying town called Petty, nestled near Root Hollow in West Virginia hills. My granddad used to warn me, don't go wandering into Root Hollow after sundown. That's when the Watcher comes out. The Watcher wasn't a ghost or an animal. According to local legend, it was a creature older than man, a thing birthed from the marrow of the mountains. Folk whispered about the Watcher wearing the skin like a coat, branches for limbs, bark for skin, eyes like coal that smothered in the night. Most thought it was a tale to keep the kids from getting lost in the woods. I thought the same until last fall. It started when my cousin Sam went missing. He had been out coon hunting with his dog near Root Hollow and never came back. Search parties found his flashlight deep in the thicket, snapped clear in half like something had stomped on it. The dog showed up 3 days later at the edge of the forest, ribs showing, paws bleeding, and it wouldn't stop howling. It also refused to go near the tree line again. Still, no one mentioned the Watcher, at least not out loud. A week later, I started hearing things at night, knocks on the wall, though no one would be there. The trees near the edge of the yard would sway when there was no wind, and one night I saw something just past the wood line, a tall silhouette, too tall. I convinced myself it was grief playing tricks on me. Sam and I had grown up like brothers, but then I found something on my porch, a piece of deer antler stripped of all the flesh and twisted into the shape of a man. It reeked like rotten sap. I remember what my granddad once said: the Watcher doesn't just watch, it marks those who get too close. It leaves bits of the forest behind because it wants you to belong to it. I should have left. I should have run away, but I needed answers. I went into Root Hollow. The forest swallowed sound. No birds, no bugs, just silence, so deep it throbbed in my skull. I followed the gully trail until I reached the old burial stones, looking like sleep markers. No names, just symbols like vines and eyes carved deep into the clay. Sam and I had camped here before. I remember joking about witches and devil signs. Now the ground around them looked freshly disturbed. I turned to leave and I heard it. Not a growl, not a whisper, a creak, like old wood groaning under pressure. I froze. Then it stepped from behind a hemlock, shaped too tall, too thin, made of dark moss and rot. Its eyes glowed like dying ambers. It didn't walk, it glided. I ran. Branches clawed at me, roots tried to trip me. Behind me, I could hear it moving, crackling, groaning like the forest was alive and angry. When I burst from the trees, I didn't stop running until I reached the old church in town. It was the only safe place I knew to go. The preacher said I was as white as a sheet and shaking. I didn't speak for hours. That was 6 months ago. I don't go near the woods anymore, but it doesn't matter. The Watcher marked me. Every few nights I find gifts on my porch: bird skulls braided with vines, sap bleeding through the wood of my front door, and claw marks that weren't there before. The forest is reaching out for me, and I know one night it won't be a gift I find on the porch. It'll be the Watcher come to take me home. So that was the first one. And then the second one is called Whispers from Blood Hollow. In the shadow folds of the Appalachian Mountain, tucked deeper in the hollow where the sun forgets to shine, there's a place locals call Blood Hollow. It ain't on any map, and if you ask around, most folks will deny it even exists. But some remember, the old ones, the ones who still leave iron nails in their windowsill and hang dry bones over the doorways. Now, I remember asking my grandmother about this when we went to Virginia to get her one year, and she said that they would put nails in their windowsill like this big to stop anything from opening the windows and to stop anything from coming in when they didn't want it to. And being from the city, I was like, what the hell? And then when we would go visit people, over the doorway of their house, it would be dried bones to keep out the bad spirits. Caleb didn't believe in any of that nonsense. Born and raised in the city, he scoffed at mountain superstitions and ghost stories. When his great uncle left him a weather worn cabin in the mountains, Caleb figured it was the perfect getaway. Isolated, cheap, just what he needed to finish his novel. But the mountains don't welcome strangers easy. On the first night in the cabin, the forest felt too quiet. No crickets, no owls, just the occasional snap of twigs, like outside, like something pacing the perimeter. Caleb thought it was a deer until he heard something scrape along the side of the cabin. Long, deliberate drags like claws against the wood. Each night the sound became closer. Whispers in the dark, speaking in a language that twisted his guts. Footsteps in the attic, although there was no attic. And always a low, growling hum like someone singing a lullaby through a throat full of gravel. He tried to leave. His car wouldn't start. His phone had no signal. Even the compass spun wildly, unable to find north. It's like the forest didn't want to let him go. On the fifth night, he found a bundle of feathers and teeth tied with twine hanging on the doorknob. On the sixth, he woke up to muddy footprints on the ceiling, bare feet too large for any man with toes that ended in hook nails. By the seventh night, he stopped sleeping altogether. One night, while pacing the creaky floorboards, Caleb seen a figure just beyond the tree line. It stood still, taller than any man, with hollow eyes that glowed red through the mist. As Caleb stared, it raised a finger to its lips. Shh. They call it the Whistler. It lures folks with false silence. It drives them mad with sleep-deprived visions. No one knows what it is or what it wants. Only once it marks you, the mountains will never let you go. Caleb was found months later, barefoot and wild-eyed, mumbling in tongues and carving spirals in every wall of the cabin. He never left the mountains again. And now some nights, hikers say they hear something whistling through the fog, off-key and low, always a few steps behind them. Okay, guys, if you want me to read an experience that you've had with the paranormal, just email me, spookynews at yahoo.com, SPOOKYNEWS at yahoo.com, and I will read it. I'm trying to get my little um, YouTube channel going because I really miss homesteading on the off the grid stories. And I figure if he could do it, I could do it. And he's always saying, people don't become millionaires by sitting at home on their butts. So I figured I would do the same thing. So send me some of your experiences so I don't feel so alone and we can read them together. Make sure you put in that I have permission to use them. Otherwise, I will just be reading a few things that people have told me so far and given me permission. I do have one email. Someone emailed me, so I'm going to read that next. And then I think I have like 10 more stories that I wrote down that my grandma told me about the Appalachian and living in West Virginia. So, once again, spookynews at yahoo.com. Bye.